Hey, episode 2 of the Moon Talk Streamcast. I got it down this time. What's up, Matt?
Hey, what's up, AG? We're back.
Yeah, we're back. We're back quick. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm pumped to hit up at episode 2 right now.
Absolutely. We're moving and shaking here.
We're here on Moon Talk talking about alternative investments and emerging technology, through the lens of culture, of music, of various forms of business. I'm pumped to share some more things with our listeners.
Yeah, man. We're just trying to be digital entrepreneurs out here and hopefully relay some relevant information to the people.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
let's
man.
go.
Yeah, man.
How's the last couple of weeks been for you in crypto world, NFT world, or work world? You sell technology still. Like, what's life like for you?
Yeah, I could get into a whole, because I know we're gonna focus on security, like, specifically a little bit later down the line. But recently, personally at work, we did introduce a malware threat into the company, and I think we found out who Ground Zero was too. But I'll mention that later on. But
that's huge, being able to find out where it came from. But
it was pretty crazy. So as a IT sales company, we do house a lot of our customers' data. They do rely on us as consultants, not only for security needs, but like storage, networking, whatever. So it is kind of in a weird place to be when you are an IT consultant and your company just got hit with a malware attack.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. And so like it was super eye-opening for a number of reasons, but back to the crypto and NFTs, like that's one of the hottest, if not the hottest topic here, is securing your assets. And so like it made me just look at what I have and how I could better assure my security. Like we've already seen some examples of thievery out there. And so this could happen to anybody. And so the fact that it could happen to my company, privately owned billion-dollar company, it's like, shit, it could happen to regular
anybody.
AG too.
There are people out there, it's their full-time job to scam people or to take advantage of the system. So I mean, it's something you talk about in real life right now, but also in emerging technologies and the blockchain stuff.
Absolutely. How about you? Over the last couple of weeks, anything pop up? Anything crazy?
I've been interviewing for some jobs actually in the security, the IT security space, specifically in identity and access management. And there were some companies that I really enjoyed working with when I was back at our old company. But as I've been going through these interviews and doing research about them, it's really interesting how much it can or will in the future tie into what we're talking about. Even when I bring up some things on these interviews, people don't necessarily know everything that I'm talking about. Some funky concepts. So I gotta hone in on my dialogue.
They'll get into it though, because I've been to like a couple partner launches, like, and partners are people that we partner with to sell into a corporation, and so I've casually brought it up there and like introducing like what the metaverse might be and security and how the security like of our cell phones will be completely different in the next few years or whatever. And it's gotten some decent feedback, but it's still just like that initial just like sticker shock, if you will. And that's why they need the Moon Talk Streamcast.
It's a crazy concept. We're in the world of the internet being called the World Wide Web, or like web pages, and are what are those? Are they duck's feet? Like, these are things back in the mid 90s that was like, it's just foreign terms. Like, what is www dot? Like, we don't say that stuff anymore. NFT and crypto, like, these are all now just names to it.
And I think just like off of that, like, we didn't have this written down, but I think like if you want to give everybody like a brief synopsis of like what Web 1, Web 2, Web 3 is, because that's something you'll constantly hear in the NFT and crypto space is we're still early in Web 3. And I know people have asked me a number of different times to break it down for me.
Yeah.
I know you have a beautiful
rendition. I just think of Web 1. Everyone's got their own definitions, but when I hear Web 1, I think of the internet. It's the era of information. When all these companies were putting stuff out on the internet, we would go to it to just consume information. Web 2, the era like social media, late 2000s, where we're able to share our information. We're able to put, through social media, we're able to, put our messaging, put our opinions, put all of our stuff out now, not just big corporations or the top internet providers.
So it's like a social media, a personal digital introduction or a personal message board for the world, essentially.
Almost where you're
Web
sharing
2.
your identity. And then I think Web3, it's the era of transactions. At least that's how I think of it. Like right now, using the blockchain, right now there's a lot of images and collecting, and it's just pictures of NFTs, and there's a lot of art, and there's not a lot of actual utility to it. But I think the technology behind it is going to be the driving force behind how transactions are made with everything we do every day, or how big companies connect with their consumer. I think there are various levers within it that are going to help move these things along to whatever Web 4
Right. So to recap real quick, Web 1, the internet, mid-90s, trying to figure out like what the hell is this thing and how are we going to utilize it. Once social media came around, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, that's Web 2 with personal identity, opinions, whatever is available for the world to like essentially know you digitally. And then Web 3, transactions, how things are linked one way or another. And you said a couple buzz terms there. I'll say buzz.
Oh, yeah, hit it.
People need to know some of this stuff. So that's why we're here to break this down. But the blockchain specifically, and I know you've got like a better technical breakdown than I do, but
I want to hear your what do you think of it? And it doesn't need to be perfect. This is the bread and butter. This is the bread and butter of what I think the type of value we can provide. Not just going to the internet and finding a definition, which doesn't make sense to me still. From your experience, like how do you interpret what it is?
Yeah, and so like personally too, like for me, the best way to learn about things is just to dive right in. So like, and I'll talk about like me diving right into NFTs, me diving right into crypto, and then how that turned out. But the concept that I understood of blockchain before I even got into it was just linked back to the originator. So whatever that might be. So I always use the Picasso example. So if Picasso created this painting X amount of years ago and bring Picasso to today to actually see what a Picasso original is worth, he'd be like, well, damn, I only sold this thing for $400 or whatever. And it's like, I don't know what a Picasso painting is, but say like it's just $1 million now. And so like he didn't get any of that resale value. And like a lot of this happens now. Like the Travis Scott sneakers are super hot right now. Like he puts out X amount and they go for, I don't know, $150 on the resale market. They're $1,200.
Right.
He doesn't see any of the resale dollars. So think about blockchain as linking Travis Scott to the person who bought the resale sneaker. Think about it as Picasso receiving the resale value of one of his paintings. So a lot of what happens, or it really depends on the community, but a lot of them that are built together for NFTs are created by some artists or whatever entity. It's sold in a specific amount. It could be 1,000 pieces, 10,000 pieces, whatever.
Or one.
Yeah, or one. And then people buy it, and if people place value on it, just like what the Dallas Cowboys were, they were evaluated as the #1 sports franchise in the world at $7.8 billion. It's only worth that if somebody buys it for $7.8 million. So like resellers buy original pieces from whoever owns it at whatever price that the market dictates or whatever they think. Yeah. And so when that resell happens, it depends on the community that you're part of, but a certain percentage is kicked back to the originator every single time it's purchased. So that's how I think about blockchain, as like something that is connected to the original source, and that original source can benefit from that.
100%. Yeah. I love those examples, that use case of how the blockchain can help these artists, whether traditional art or music. I think that's something I want to dig into even later in this episode, because there's such a the lever of a smart contract, which
Yeah.
we'll talk about, the lever of creating that asset on the blockchain digitally, is gonna. This is what we talk about changing the world. Like, this is how artists are now going to be able to make a living, and not just make a living, like make a real
Right.
impact with their art. It's changing fast.
Right.
But I love those examples.
And I'm glad you mentioned the smart contract, because the smart contract essentially populates when you purchase whatever entity, and you're a part of that smart contract from now on. And so that also cements the uniqueness of it.
Yeah.
So like people joke around like, oh, I have a Bored Ape too because I screenshotted it. And so like
Right click and save.
Yeah, and like for those people who don't know, like Bored Apes are like profile picture NFTs, and they're going for hundreds of thousands of dollars right now. And so you can prove that it's an original Bored Ape if you own that smart contract.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also the value of the blockchain. You could go back and see who's owned it, who owns it now, and you can also like utilize it as like, I guess a market analyzer. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what it was worth back in 2018, and this is what it is now.
You've got a record of everything.
Yeah.
This is
And that's where I think the value is, like,
Yes.
really, in the blockchain.
And
So,
that's where it transfers from an image of an ape to, the supply chain of a real corporation building things or developing things. If you can, track the parts, you're building a car. If you could track the parts from start to finish, know where everything is at any given time, imagine the power that has in planning and building your business.
Right.
And that's something that can be done with this technology.
right. And then secondly, like something that's like makes everything a little bit more, I guess, attractive. You mentioned utility.
Mm-hmm.
And so utility is a word in the NFT community of like essentially I'm signing up for. Once I purchase this entity, I'm signing up for something, whatever the originators created this for.
If I own this, it gets me XYZ.
Me this. So utility is what essentially perks you get with being an owner of whatever profile picture it may be, whatever art piece it may be.
And we talk about utility a lot. It's not a word that's used day to day, but like utility, if you're going to a Pistons game tonight, you buy a ticket, and your utility with your physical ticket, just traditional going to a Pistons game, the utility by owning this ticket, you get access to the game.
Right.
Like, there's your utility.
You get to go sit in
this
whatever.
Seat. Right.
Yeah.
So there's just a normal basic example of you have this thing, it gets you this.
Yes, you get this experience, or you get this tangible asset. That's whatever the transaction dictates.
Right.
Is utility. And so in the NFT space, it could be a number of different things, and that's why it's so cool about the smart contract, because utility is built into the smart contract.
Right.
So like you can prove that you own this piece, so you get access to X, Y, and Z. Like I'll bring up two examples. Bored Ape, for what I know, because I'm not an owner, but I've got a couple friends who are. They get access to certain exclusive parties that are announced. I don't know, nationwide, might be worldwide, I'm not sure. But if you have a Bored Ape and you bring your wallet, they scan it, prove that you've got it, you're allowed access to this exclusive event. Another one is Des Bryant, a retired football player. For those that you don't know, played for the Dallas Cowboys. He was really good back in his day.
Personal Corner?
What'd you say?
Oh,
yeah, Personal Corner. Yeah. He developed an NFT, I want to say about a year ago now, or coming up on a year. And if you own one of his profile picture NFTs, depending on the level that you purchase at, you get certain access to things that Des Bryant built in the smart contract. Like one of them is like you get to go to a Dallas Cowboys game with him
in his suite once a year.
Yeah.
That's just like the basic, I think from what I understand, the basic perk that's given out. If you own these, you get to come to a game with me at Dallas Stadium in my suite.
So it's like reading into like some of these communities, like what you get access to can essentially boost the value of whatever NFT asset it might be. It might be, to you, might be the stupidest looking thing in the world, but you get to go to the Super Bowl, you get to go to Fashion Week, you get to go whatever they built in. So, which I think is really interesting, because majority of what we're seeing are like personal groups that have developed to come and create this idea or an individual. But when these companies start figuring out how to do it, like, it's gonna change the game. Like, I personally think like some of these department stores or Walmarts of the world, Targets of the world, they're gonna start coming out with their own coins
that you can only use at Walmart. You got to use this coin.
Yeah, and you only get access to certain products or certain discounts if you use Walmart coin or whatever. So it's just
I think every receipt is going to be an NFT.
Yeah.
And I want to get back to the artist analogy.
Yeah.
As part of that example, so we'll get back to that. But I think every receipt, literally every receipt you go at a store right now, could be an NFT for a very specific reason.
Yeah,
and that's just something. Literally, you buy something, you get a receipt every time. Everyone's going to be interacting with this. They may not actually know it.
Think of that as a smart contract.
Bang.
Your friggin' receipt. Because
Bang.
it shows you purchased or had access to whatever.
Right. So traditionally, now let me give you my how I think about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to start traditional leading into what the blockchain is, like how we do banking traditionally right now.
Yeah.
Adam, you're a pizza shop owner, and I'm going to buy a couple slices of pizza from you. It's going to cost me $5. I don't use much cash anymore these days, so I pull out my debit card or my credit card, and I swipe it to buy $5 of pizza. That automatically triggers a notification to my bank saying, hey, Matt's trying to spend $5 for this slice of pizza to pay AG. Does he have enough money in his bank? So yes. Sends a message over to Adam's bank. Hey, he's got this money. Transaction good.
Yeah. Here's the pizza.
Swipe my card. You get your money. At the end of the day, the banks, create their tally of how much money we have in my bank account.
Yeah.
I started with $55. I now have $50 in my bank account. You started with $1 million, and now you're
my pizza's
rich.
going crazy.
$1,005,000. So that's how it works traditionally in the banking system. When you think about the blockchain, I'm going to use the word ledger. It's this big ledger, but think of it like a big Excel spreadsheet of just transaction on one side, recipient on the other side. The blockchain is instead of the two banks communicating together, this person has enough money, so we're going to let this go through. Cool, it's going to go through. The blockchain is made up by millions of computers, all the computers that are connected to this system around the world, and the group is deciding through all of these transactions that have ever happened on this massive ledger, this massive spreadsheet. All these computers are saying, hey, does Matt have $5 to pay AG? He does. We all confirmed it, all million of us working at the same time, all these numbers crunching, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Whatever happens behind the scenes, he has it. All right, trigger that over to Adam's account. Now there's a public record. When that transaction happens, there's a public record that the blockchain writes saying, at this moment in time, literally a timestamp, at this moment in time, this transaction happened, which now shows Adam having $1,005,005 and Matt now has $45 in his account. And that's just a transaction with money.
Right.
But what the blockchain does, being able to verify that at that very given time, that allows every time you make a transaction, this blockchain, all these computers around the world are now going and seeing that transaction. It shows up in your stuff. It's all public. It's all on the internet.
Yeah.
And so that ability to track things and know exactly what's in your wallet, exactly what each person or each entity owns is massive.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the bank because you showed me a security episode on a specific podcast while we were trying to figure out are we going to have hard wallets or virtual wallets or whatever. And this one guy was talking about how he's a bike enthusiast and he wanted this specific bike. He's a United States citizen, but this bike was located in Europe. And so he had to transfer US dollars to become whatever. And so, because I don't know if it was necessarily in Europe or if it was in Spain or whatever.
There was a currency exchange that needed to happen.
Yeah. And
weird, traditional, weird currency exchange.
Yeah. And so with
normal.
With the blockchain, that could be assessed right then and there versus somebody who's trying to purchase something somewhere else physically in the world and they have to go through all these extra security measures because they think you're a scammer, a terrorist, or whatever, and it's making it damn near impossible for this guy just to purchase a bike. Mm-hmm. And so what the blockchain can incorporate is that essentially that millions of verifications that need to happen in a second's notice, and it's there archived, like in greenlit, like that changes transactions all over the world for everybody.
It's the group, it's the consensus that's proving that this happened. It's like if we were, this literally just came into my head, if we were battling in Sparta, or what's that movie with Russell Crowe, where back in the day?
Gladiator?
Gladiator, yeah. You know, you and I are battling to the death in front of, we'll call it the whole world's watching, and, you know, in the arena, you knock me out. Everyone is watching, seeing that, can confirm, yep, Matt's dead, AG knocked him out.
Right.
That's just, I can't go and pretend to be alive. You know what I'm saying? It's everybody confirming at the same time.
This definitely happened.
Yeah. It's a weird concept. It seems like a weird concept, but when you think about how it works traditionally, it's the bank, a centralized entity with whatever biases, good or bad. They always have a reason to do something. Mm-hmm. You hope everyone's honest, and you hope everything works perfectly, which it doesn't. But you have the single entity making the decision, making the confirmations, the ability to change whatever is going on, like in their system. There's a lot of power that they have in that.
Right.
On the blockchain, one of the words that I didn't use that I should have in the analogy is once that's written in, that's timestamped, it's unalterable. Like that's the smart contract or the technology behind it. It can't be changed.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
If someone were to go and try to scam you or create this fake transaction to just steal all your money, the consensus, all the computers would see this one little thing is off in this super long chain of transactions that you've made. That's probably not the right person doing this.
Yeah, and it'll determine it as fraud or whatever the case may be. But I wanted to take this time to talk about some of the projects that we're involved in, you and I specifically, because we're tied into a couple of them.
Let's real quick. I want to revisit your Picasso analogy first, though, and maybe this takes us into the next episode. But you were talking about how Picasso isn't receiving any compensation from any of his work that's being sold today.
Yep.
Hundreds, however long it's been since he died.
We're not historians.
What Picasso could have done if he was alive today.
Yeah.
He's so, like we just explained, that blockchain transaction. He's putting out a piece of his art on the block, that very first transaction. When he creates this piece of art in the smart contract, how this digital asset was created, he can put in a royalty that I'm going to make every time this is sold.
Correct.
I'm going to make
said royalty. Yeah.
I'm going to make 5% of its sale. And today on average it's probably 7.5%. 10% that people are putting on their projects. Who knows what it ends up as? But I digress. He can build a royalty into that smart contract that also can't ever change.
Yep.
So he sells it, as a kid when he was younger to you for $100.
Yeah. On the blockchain.
On the blockchain. Years go by. That piece of work is now worth $1 million. It's worth $1 million, so you sell it to someone else for that amount. He then gets 5% of that sale. That can happen any time that's ever sold.
Right.
In perpetuity, forever. So maybe he's dead. He can still, arrange for it to go to his family or his trust or however it goes. But Picasso is making money off of his original work forever.
Right.
So think about how that could affect artists coming up. Kids these days that are going to become artists. When their first piece of work is, or their first piece of work on the blockchain is created, like that provenance behind that, or the reason why, they can actually take advantage of that for the rest of their lives plus more.
Absolutely. And I know we've watched a bunch of content that specifically focuses on this for the music industry. Mm-hmm. Somebody coming up, like your brother, for example.
Yeah. He's a violinist.
Makes whatever amount of, we'll say an album. Say it's 13 tracks. Hey, all my fans, go check out my new album, but it's only on this it could be Ethereum, whatever coin you decide.
It's an NFT.
Yeah, it's an NFT, and so there's a specific amount. And so what he's trying to do is build his own audience and also remove any creative control with that, because you essentially are your own record label. So like what record labels do is they sign artists, they front load them cash, and then they pay for videos, marketing, distribution,
all of it,
whatever. And then they hope the music is successful, that they can recoup all of that money, and that's when the artist profits. If you remove the record label and you go straight to your fans and then ask them to purchase whatever album, merch, whatever you decide to put out there.
Hey, you guys have been supporting me locally for a couple years now. I really want to make this album with 13 tracks.
Right.
This is helping you fund it.
Right.
Like, hey, fans, can you help me do this for a percentage of ownership of that album?
Exactly. And you put that utility offering in there to incentivize your fans. And if you have super fans or really people who are super proud of your work, they're going to go buy it. And then they're going to say, hey, I have an original copy of X, Y, and Z album. Hold it for whatever. Your brother starts bubbling up. That's an original first piece of this album that, I don't know, he might make it mainstream for Spotify and iTunes and all this stuff later on, maybe 15 years down the line. But the smart contract says this is an original audio file of this album. And just imagine the value of that. And then if your brother decides to put into the smart contract, all my fans get a piece too. They
of
get
the
a piece
streaming
of
rights.
every streaming right, every time it's sold or whatever. Like,
and so what's that doing? That's allowing fans to build wealth through their favorite musicians, their favorite artists, which is an insane concept, an insanely awesome concept. When you think about how many people are in SoundCloud these days, or you know, knew of the uber famous artists now that, oh man, like I knew them when they weren't even popular. Like there's a feeling you get about being first and supporting someone who makes it, but there's no real way to prove it. Now you can prove it and make money off of it. And the artist keeps, we'll call it 80-90% of both the control and the money to then, you know, pre-fund his album. You don't have to farm it out to a record label. You get all those royalties in the future. It's really crazy. It's fun.
Yeah, man. Like shout out my favorite artist ever, Nipsey Hussle. Fuck the middleman. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
Like he was working on his original first album for 10 years, trying to avoid working for the record label. Like this is a direct line.
Weird.
To the fans, like just to support whatever you got going on. Like you don't need anybody to tell you how to dress and creative control, and you need to do a song with this person. Like
imagine if CVS, you know, they sponsor a local artist and they put their art on an NFT receipt, which for years may be worthless, but you're going to get a receipt anyway. Might as well put some art on it. Imagine if that local artist turns out to be someone special, the next Picasso, the next Banksy. And his first piece of art on the blockchain was this receipt that all these people have at some point. They decide to then sell it, even for $100 or $200. Like it doesn't have to be hundreds of thousands, $100.